You step off the trail, and the trees open up in front of you. And there it is, the river, wide and slow and silver in the late afternoon light, moving past you with a soft, steady sound that reaches you even before you reach it. You stop for a moment, right where the trail meets the bank, letting your eyes adjust to the openness. After so long walking beneath the trees, and you feel your shoulders drop, just slightly under the weight of your pack. A small, automatic relief that comes from arriving somewhere after a long walk. The air here is different from the air on the trail. Cooler, damper, carrying with it the clean mineral smell of moving water and wet stone, mixed with something green and growing. The smell of moss and reeds along the bank. You stand still and let your eyes travel along the river in both directions, taking in the whole scene slowly. The way the water catches the low sun in long, bright streaks near the far bank. The way it darkens to a deep, quiet green in the slower pools closer to you. The way the current pulls small leaves and bits of foam along in lazy, wandering paths. Above the far bank, the hills rise gently, covered in a soft blur of green that is just beginning to take on the gold tint of late afternoon. And beyond them, the sky is a wide, pale blue, streaked here and there with thin white clouds that seem to be moving even more slowly than the river itself. You listen for a while before you move again. The river makes a sound that is not one single sound but many, layered together. A low, steady rush where it moves fastest over the shallow rocks nearby. A softer, deeper murmur where it slows and pools. And underneath all of it, a constant textured hiss. Water against stone, water against water. Endless and unhurried. Somewhere off to your left, a bird calls twice. A clear, bright sound. And then falls silent, leaving the river's voice to fill the space again. You let your pack settle more fully onto your back, feeling the familiar pull of its straps across your shoulders. And you take a moment simply to stand there, feet planted on the soft ground at the trail's end, doing nothing at all except looking and listening. The far bank is dotted here and there with pale, smooth stones, exposed where the water has receded slightly with the season. And closer to you, where the current slows near the edge, you can see the surface holding a faint, wavering reflection of the sky. Gold and pale blue mixed together, breaking apart gently wherever the current disturbs it. You shift your pack higher on your shoulders and begin to walk along the bank, moving slowly, in no particular hurry. Your boots finding their way over the uneven ground, a mix of packed dirt, smooth river stones, and the occasional soft patch of moss that gives gently under your weight. The path along the water is not really a path at all, just the natural line where the trees give way to open bank, and you follow it easily, your eyes moving back and forth between the ground in front of you and the river beside you, taking in both at once. The light out here has a particular quality to it, warm and low, slanting in from somewhere behind the hills, catching the tops of the grasses along the bank and turning them a soft, glowing gold. You can feel the sun's last real warmth on the side of your face as you walk. Gentle now, not the sharp heat of midday, but something softer, more like a hand resting briefly against your skin before drawing away. The breeze coming off the water is cool by comparison, just enough to raise the small hairs on your arms, carrying with it that same clean mineral smell. And every so often, a slightly stronger gust brings the smell of something else too. Wet leaves, perhaps, or the faint sweetness of some flowering plant tucked into the underbrush nearby. You pass a stretch of bank where the water runs fast and shallow over a bed of smooth stones, and you slow down to watch it for a moment. The way the water breaks into small white ripples over each stone and then smooths out again just past it, over and over. A pattern that repeats itself endlessly and yet never looks quite the same twice. The sound here is louder, brighter, a constant cheerful chatter of water against rock, and you find yourself smiling slightly without really deciding to. The way this place seems to be doing exactly what it is supposed to do. Moving, sounding, simply being here. Patient and unbothered by your arrival. Further along, the bank widens out into a small clearing, flatter than the ground you have been walking, tucked back just slightly from the water's edge, shaded on one side by a stand of tall trees, and open on the other toward the river itself. You stop walking and look at it carefully, turning slowly to take in the whole space, feeling that quiet, familiar sense of recognition that comes when you find exactly what you were looking for, without quite knowing you were looking for it. The ground here looks level, covered in a soft layer of fallen leaves and short grass, with the trees standing far enough back to offer some shelter without crowding the space too closely. You walk out into the middle of the clearing and turn in a slow circle, taking stock of everything around you. To one side, the river moves past steadily, close enough that you can hear every detail of its sound, far enough that you will not need to worry about the water rising in the night. Behind you, the trees rise up in a loose, uneven line, their branches beginning to darken now as the sun continues its slow drop toward the hills, and you can smell the faint, resinous scent of pine mixed in with the damp green smell of the riverbank. The air in the clearing feels calm, sheltered, as though the trees and the gentle rise of the land behind you are holding back whatever wind might otherwise reach this spot. You notice, too, the small details that make the place feel welcoming, rather than simply adequate. A soft bed of moss creeping along the base of one nearby tree, a low outcrop of stone half hidden in the grass that might make a good seat later on, and beyond the clearing's open edge, a clear view down to a shallow, gently shelving section of bank where you could easily reach the water to refill a bottle or rinse your hands. Everything about the space feels considered, even though you know it is simply the accidental result of years of wind and water and growth. Trees choosing to grow where they grow, stone settling where gravity and current left it. And yet it feels, standing here now, as though it has been waiting for exactly this purpose. You crouch down and press your palm flat against the ground, feeling for firmness, for any hidden slope or softness that might make for an uncomfortable night. And the ground feels solid and even beneath your hand, cool and slightly damp from the shade, with a thin cushion of leaf litter that gives just slightly under the pressure of your palm. You nod to yourself, satisfied, and rise back to your feet, already beginning to picture how the space might work, where the tent might sit, where you might build a small fire later, once the light has faded further. Before you can settle in fully, though, the ground needs a little attention. You walk slowly across the clearing, scanning for anything that might get in the way, and you spot the first obstacle almost immediately a scattering of small branches near the centre of the flattest patch of ground, fallen sometime recently from the trees above, dry and brittle looking, pale against the darker leaves beneath them. You crouch down and gather them up one at a time, feeling the light, papery texture of the bark under your fingers, the small branches snapping easily where they are thinner, bending stubbornly where they are thicker until you find the right angle, and they give way with a soft, dry crack. You carry the gathered branches to the edge of the clearing and set them down in a loose pile near the tree line, thinking, even as you do it, that some of the smaller, drier pieces might come in handy later, once it is time to start a fire. You return to the clearing and continue your slow sweep across the ground, your eyes and your bare hands working together now, feeling for anything your eyes might have missed. Small twigs hidden beneath the leaf litter, a few sharp pine cones scattered near the base of one tree, all of it gathered and moved carefully out of the way. Next come the stones, several of them scattered across the spot you have chosen for your tent, smooth river rocks that must have been carried here long ago by water that no longer reaches this high, or perhaps placed here by some other traveller passing through before you. You pick each one up individually, feeling their weight, their surprising smoothness, the way the afternoon sun has warmed one side of each stone, while the other, pressed against the cool ground, has stayed cold and slightly damp. You turn one over in your hand for a moment, running your thumb along its polished surface, admiring the quiet, patient work of the water that shaped it, before setting it aside with the others in a small, neat pile near the branches. One stone catches your attention more than the others, flatter than the rest, and a pale grey, streaked through with a thin, darker vein that runs the length of it, and you hold it a moment longer than you need to, feeling its cool, smooth weight settle into your palm before you set it down with the others. There is a quiet pleasure in this kind of noticing, in letting a simple stone hold your attention fully for a moment before moving on, and you find yourself slowing down even further, in no rush at all to finish the small task in front of you. You work your way methodically across the flattest section of ground, clearing it stone by stone, branch by branch, your movements unhurried, almost meditative, a kind of simple, repetitive task that asks very little of your mind and lets it wander instead, drifting along with the sound of the river beside you. Every so often, you pause and press your palm flat against a newly cleared patch of ground, checking again for firmness, for evenness, making sure the space beneath where you will eventually lie down is as smooth and welcoming as you can make it. The light continues to shift while you work, the gold tones deepening slowly into something richer, almost amber, the shadows beneath the trees growing longer and softer at their edges. You feel the temperature beginning to drop too, just slightly, the cool air off the river gathering a little more insistence now that the sun has lost some of its earlier warmth, and you notice yourself moving a little more briskly, though still without any real urgency, simply falling into the rhythm of the work. A light dusting of pollen or fine dust rises whenever you brush your hand across the leaf litter, catching briefly in the low, slanting light before settling again, small and golden and unhurried, and you find yourself pausing more than once just to watch it drift. Another small, quiet detail, In a place that seems full of them, you find one last stone, larger than the others, half buried in the soft ground near the edge of your cleared space, and you work your fingers carefully around its edges, rocking it gently back and forth until it loosens and lifts free, leaving behind a small, damp hollow that smells of cool earth and old leaves. You brush the loose soil from your palms and set the stone with the rest, and then you stand back for a moment, looking over the space you have made, flat and clear and quiet, framed by the dark shapes of the trees on one side and the wide, moving water on the other. You take a slow breath, filling your lungs with the cool, river-scented air, and you let it out again, just as slowly, feeling something in your chest loosen and settle, the particular satisfaction that comes from small, honest work done well. The river continues its steady conversation beside you, the same layered sound it has been making all along, rushing and murmuring and hissing softly over stone, patient and unbroken. And you realize you have stopped noticing your pack's weight on your shoulders, stopped noticing the last aches of the trail in your legs. Your attention settled instead into this one small cleared patch of ground and the wide, easy evening spreading out around it. The sky above the clearing has begun its own slow transformation, the pale blue of the afternoon deepening at its edges into something softer, a faint wash of gold along the horizon, where the sun continues its unhurried descent behind the hills. A few of the taller grasses near the water's edge sway gently in the breeze, and you watch them for a moment, their slow, easy motion matching the pace of everything else here. The water, the light, your own breathing, all of it settling into the same unhurried rhythm. You look once more around the space you have cleared, running your eyes over every corner of it, checking for anything you might have missed. But there is nothing left to find, only smooth, even ground, waiting quietly for whatever comes next. Behind you, the trees stand watchfully in the gathering dusk, and beside you, the river keeps moving, keeps sounding, indifferent and constant, exactly as it has been since long before you arrived, and exactly as it will remain long after you have gone. And for now, in this soft, fading light, that steady, ancient sound feels like the only thing you truly need to hear. You reach up and slide your thumbs beneath the shoulder straps of your pack, feeling the familiar tug of fabric against your skin as you ease it loose, and you lower the pack slowly to the ground beside the cleared patch of earth, letting it settle with a soft, muffled thud against the grass. Your shoulders rise almost immediately, lighter now, and you roll them once, feeling the small ache of the day's walk begin to loosen and fade, replaced by a looser, easier feeling that spreads down through your arms and across your back. You stretch your arms overhead for a moment, feeling your spine lengthen, and then you let them drop, your whole body settling into the stillness of having finally arrived. You flex your fingers a few times, feeling the faint stiffness left behind by the pack straps, easing slowly out of them, and you press your thumb into the muscle along one shoulder, working out a small, familiar knot before letting your arm fall loose again at your side. The relief of setting the pack down is a small, specific pleasure you have come to know well. The sudden lightness in your legs, the way your whole posture seems to open up and expand once that weight is no longer pressing down on you. You lower yourself down onto the flat stone you noticed earlier, tucked at the edge of the clearing, feeling its surface cool and slightly rough beneath you. Still faintly warm in the centre, where the last of the afternoon sun had been resting on it. You sit there for a minute. Simply sit, your hands loose in your lap, your eyes moving slowly across the scene in front of you. The wide, moving water, the darkening line of trees, the soft gold light beginning to deepen at the edges of the sky. The river's sound fills the quiet completely. That same layered rush and murmur you noticed when you first arrived. And you find yourself breathing in time with it now, without meaning to. Your chest rising and falling in an easy rhythm that matches the water's own unhurried pace. You notice small things you missed while you were working. A dragonfly hovering low over a still patch of water near the bank, its wings catching the light in brief, iridescent flashes before it darts off. Gone. A trio of small fish hold steady in the current near a submerged rock, barely moving, their pale bodies flickering now and then as they adjust to some invisible pull of the water. The air smells cooler now than it did an hour ago. The mineral sharpness of the river, mixing with something softer. The beginning of evening itself. A scent you cannot quite name, but recognize completely. Something like cool stone and settling dew. After a while, you rise, unhurried, and turn your attention to the pack resting in the grass beside you. You crouch down and unbuckle the top flap, feeling the familiar click and give of the clasps beneath your fingers, and you fold the flap back, releasing a faint smell of canvas and the sun-warmed rubber of the compression straps. You reach in and draw out the tent, still bundled tight in its stuff sack, the fabric cool and slightly slick beneath your palm, and you set it down in the center of the cleared space, feeling its solid, compact weight settle against the ground. You loosen the drawstring at the top of the stuff sack and reach inside, drawing out the folded tent body first, a soft, tightly packed bundle of fabric that unfurls slowly as you shake it out, the material rustling and snapping gently in the cooling air. You lay it flat across the cleared ground, smoothing your palms over its surface, feeling the fine, slightly slippery texture of the nylon, cool to the touch, patterned faintly with the creases of however many times it has been folded and packed away before tonight. You walk around it slowly, orienting it the way you always do, door facing the river, so that in the morning the first light and the sound of the water will reach you together. You return to the stuff sack and draw out the poles next, folded into their own smaller bundle, each segment held together by a thin length of elastic cord that hums faintly under your fingers as you draw the sections apart. You unfold the first pole slowly, feeling each segment click into place with a small, satisfying snap. The aluminum cool and smooth against your palm, faintly gritty in places from the fine dust of countless other campsites. One by one, you unfold the segments, listening to that same soft click each time two pieces find their place, until you are holding a single, long, flexible pole, and you set it aside gently before starting on the second. There is something quietly pleasing about the sound each segment makes as it locks into the next, a small, bright note that seems to belong entirely to this particular task, the beginning of a shelter taking shape piece by piece in your hands. You test the pole's flex once it is fully assembled, bending it gently between your palms, feeling its familiar give and spring. Sturdy but never rigid. built to bow into a wide, generous curve without complaint. With both poles assembled, you kneel beside the tent body and begin threading the first pole through its long fabric sleeve, feeding it slowly, hand over hand, feeling the pole's slight resistance as it curves and bends its way through the channel, the fabric rustling softly around it the whole way. You reach the far end and guide the tip of the pole into its corner grommet, feeling the small, firm resistance as it seats into place. And you repeat the same slow process with the second pole, threading it through its own sleeve, crossing the first at the center in a low, even arc. You move to stand at the tent's center point, and you press upward gently on the crossed poles, feeling the whole structure begin to rise beneath your hands. The fabric lifting off the ground in a slow, unfolding motion, the nylon tightening and smoothing as the poles bow into their full curve. You guide the last corner into place, feeling the final grommet seat with a small, solid click, and the tent stands now on its own. A soft, rounded shape, glowing faintly gold in the low evening light, its walls trembling gently whenever the breeze off the river reaches it. You circle the tent slowly, checking each corner, tugging gently at the fabric here and there to even out the tension, feeling the small give and resistance of the material as it settles into its proper shape. You reach for the stakes next, drawing them one at a time from a small pouch, each one cool and slightly rough with a faint film of dust. And you press the first into the soft ground at the corner of the tent, feeling it sink easily through the leaf litter and into the firmer earth beneath. You work your way around the tent, staking down each corner, then each guy line, your motions falling into an easy, familiar rhythm. Press, twist, press again, the small resistance of the ground giving way each time to the steady pressure of your palm and the stake's angled tip. Every so often, you pause to test a line with a gentle tug, feeling for the right tension. Not too tight, not too loose, just enough to hold the fabric taut and steady against whatever wind might rise later in the night. The tent takes shape fully now, standing solid and complete in the center of the clearing, its pale fabric catching the day's last light in a soft, warm glow. You step back once to look at the whole shape of it, standing there in the clearing like a small, pale dome, the fabric taut and even on every side, no wrinkles or loose sagging anywhere along its curve. You walk one more slow circle around it, running your fingertips lightly along the seams, checking the rainfly's tension where it stretches over the main body, tugging one final guy line, just slightly tauter until it hums faintly beneath your finger. The sound low and satisfying, the sound of something built well and built to hold. You unzip the door slowly, the sound bright and metallic against the softer sounds of the river and the settling evening, and you duck inside, feeling the tent's floor firm and slightly springy beneath your knees, still smelling faintly of the fabric's own particular scent, something clean and synthetic mixed with the fainter, warmer smell of many nights spent inside it before. You smooth your palm across the floor, checking for any small stone or root you might have missed in your earlier clearing. But the ground beneath you feels even and solid, exactly as you had hoped. You reach back out through the door and draw in your sleeping pad, unrolling it slowly across the tent floor, feeling it slowly inflate and firm up beneath your hands as you work the valve. The material cool and slightly textured against your palms. You smooth it into place, centering it carefully, and then you draw in your sleeping bag next, shaking it out of its own tight stuff sack, feeling the fabric loosen and expand, filling with air, the small down clusters inside shifting and settling with a faint, whispering rustle. You spread the sleeping bag out along the length of the pad, smoothing your hands down its surface, feeling its soft, quilted texture, warm even now before you have climbed inside it, holding some memory of warmth from wherever it was stored before today. You fluff the small pillow you carry, an oversized stuff sack filled loosely with a spare layer of clothing, punching it gently into shape before setting it at the head of the bag, and you sit back on your heels for a moment, admiring the small, complete little nest you have built, soft and inviting in the tent's dim, glowing interior. The tent's fabric glows a soft amber around you now, lit faintly from outside by the day's last direct light passing through the nylon walls, and the whole small space feels warm and close, sheltered completely from the cooling air beyond it. You run your hand once more across the sleeping bag surface, smoothing out one last small wrinkle near the foot end, and you notice how quiet it is in here. The river's sound reaching you only faintly now, softened by the tent walls into a low, distant murmur, almost like the sound is coming from somewhere further away than it actually is. You unzip a small mesh pocket near the tent ceiling and tuck your headlamp inside it for later, within easy reach, and you allow yourself one more slow look around the little space before backing out again into the open evening air. You back out of the tent slowly and return to your pack, drawing out the rest of your gear one item at a time, laying each piece out with the same unhurried care you brought to everything else so far. Your headlamp comes out first, and you test it briefly. A small, bright circle of light blooming against the darkening grass before you switch it off again, setting it within easy reach near the tent's door. Your water filter follows, along with a small cookpot, a folding stove, and a stuff sack of food, each item finding its place in a loose, sensible arrangement near the fire pit you plan to build soon. You arrange the stove carefully on a flat patch of bare ground, checking that it sits level and steady, and you set the small fuel canister beside it, giving it a light shake to gauge how much remains, the faint slosh telling you there is plenty for tonight's simple meal. You unpack the cookpot and set it nearby, along with a single spoon and a small folding cup, laying each item out in a neat row, the metal cool and slightly dulled from use, catching only the faintest gleam of the fading light. You check the water filter's hose briefly, coiling it loosely and setting it beside your water bottles, ready for a quick trip down to the bank once you are ready to start dinner. You take a last few items from the pack, a warm layer to change into once the sun is fully down, a small first aid kit, a folded map you likely will not need again tonight, but like to keep close anyway, and you arrange them just inside the tent's vestibule, protected from the evening dew, but still within easy reach. You close the pack's now much lighter body and set it against the base of a nearby tree, out of the way, and you stand for a moment, hands on your hips, surveying the small camp you have built, tent glowing softly in the fading light, gear arranged neatly around it, everything in its place, everything ready. The sky above the clearing has shifted further while you worked, the gold light thinning now into something paler, almost silver, the first hint of the evening's coming blue beginning to show at the eastern edge of the sky. The river continues its steady sound beside you, unchanged, patient, and you feel, standing here in the cooling air with your camp complete around you, a deep, settled satisfaction, the particular calm that comes from having built, with your own 2 hands, a small, safe place to rest for the night. You take one more slow turn around the little camp, checking each piece once more out of habit, rather than real necessity. The tent standing firm and taut, the gear arranged neatly within reach, the pack resting against its tree, with its straps loosely coiled. The air smells fully of evening now, cool and green and touched with the mineral edge of the river. And somewhere behind the trees, a bird settles into its roost with a soft rustle of wings before falling quiet. You feel your own body settling in much the same way, unhurried at ease, ready now for whatever comes next in this soft, slow evening by the water. You walk over to the small pile of branches you gathered earlier and crouch down beside them, sorting through the collection slowly, separating the driest, thinnest pieces from the thicker ones you will need once the fire has taken hold. The wood feels light and papery in your hands, some pieces snapping cleanly with a soft, dry crack when you test them, others bending with a quiet resistance that tells you they still hold a little moisture deep inside. You build a small pile of the thinnest twigs first, no bigger around than your finger, breaking a few of the longer ones down further, feeling the satisfying give of dry wood yielding easily under a little pressure. You run your hand once more along the small pile, checking for any last damp pieces you might have missed, and you set those aside near the edge of the ring instead, where the fire's warmth will dry them out slowly for later use, rather than smothering the young flame with their moisture. The bark on some of the thicker pieces flakes away easily under your thumb, pale and papery, and you gather a small handful of it separately, knowing from experience how quickly it catches, a useful bit of tinder to add if the twigs alone are slow to take. You clear a small circle in the center of your camp, near enough to the tent to feel its warmth later, but far enough that no stray spark could reach the fabric, and you arrange a ring of the stones you gathered earlier around the bare patch of earth, each one settling into place with a soft, solid clunk. You crouch low over the cleared circle and begin to build your fire the way you always do. A loose, open teepee of the thinnest twigs first, leaning against each other in a delicate, airy structure that leaves plenty of room for air to move through. You reach into your pocket for matches, and the small box feels light and familiar in your palm. The cardboard slightly soft from being carried close to your body all day. You strike one slowly, feeling the small resistance of the match head against the strip, and then the sudden, bright flare of flame, orange and eager, catching the tip of the match and beginning its short, steady burn. You cup your hand around it out of habit, though the evening air is calm, barely a breath of wind reaching this sheltered spot, and you lower the flame carefully into the base of your small teepee of twigs. The flame catches almost immediately, the driest twigs curling and blackening as the fire finds its first hold. A small, eager crackle rising up from the base of the pile. You watch closely, feeding in a few more thin twigs from the side, careful not to smother the young flame, and you feel a small, familiar satisfaction as the fire begins to grow on its own, no longer needing your help quite so directly. Climbing steadily upward through the loose structure of wood, you lean in slightly, elbows resting on your knees, watching the small flames find their footing among the twigs, each one bending and licking upward before settling into a steadier, more confident burn. The first curls of smoke rise thin and pale, twisting slowly upward before the still evening air lets them drift sideways and vanish, and you catch, for just a moment, that particular sharp, resinous smell of green wood just beginning to smoke before the flame fully takes hold of it. You add slightly thicker pieces now, laying them carefully rather than dropping them, feeling their weight settle into place, watching the flames lick up around each new piece, and catch the fire's voice growing louder now, a soft, steady crackle and pop that begins to fill the quiet evening air, along with the river's constant murmur. Smoke rises in a thin, pale ribbon, catching the last of the daylight as it drifts upward and away, carrying with it that particular smell you have always loved, sharp and clean and faintly sweet, wood smoke mixing with the cooler, greener smell of the evening air around you. You sit back slowly onto the flat stone near the fire ring, close enough to feel its gathering warmth reaching out toward you, and you watch the flames settle into a steady, confident burn. No longer the small, uncertain flicker of a few minutes ago, but something fuller now, something with real presence, casting a soft, moving orange light across the ground and up into the lower branches of the trees behind you. You feed in one more piece of wood, a little larger than the last, and you watch it catch slowly, the bark blackening and curling before the flame finds its way fully around the log. With the fire settled into its steady burn, you allow your attention to drift outward, toward the river and the sky beyond it, and you notice how much the light has changed while you worked. The sun has dropped low enough now that it sits just above the far hills, a deep, glowing orange disk, softened at its edges by a thin haze that has gathered along the horizon. The light it casts has changed too, no longer the clear gold of earlier afternoon, but something richer, redder, spreading in long, warm streaks across the surface of the water, catching every small ripple and turning it briefly into a moving line of fire, before it fades again into the darker water beyond. You watch the sun's slow descent for a long while, propped comfortably against the stone, one hand resting near enough to the fire to feel its warmth without needing to move any closer. The disk seems to move faster the lower it sinks, though you know it only appears that way, the last sliver of it finally slipping behind the dark silhouette of the hills, leaving behind a wide glowing band of orange and pink that will take its time fading from the sky. The air cools noticeably the moment the sun disappears. A small, immediate shift you feel first along your arms and the back of your neck, and you find yourself leaning a little closer to the fire's warmth without really deciding to. A few birds cross the wide band of colour low over the water, dark, quick shapes against the glow, heading somewhere for the night, and you watch them until they disappear into the deepening blue further along the river's bend. The water itself has taken on a new quality now, no longer catching the sharp gold of afternoon, but instead holding a soft, muted reflection of the fading sky. Streaks of rose and amber breaking gently apart wherever the current moves, smoothing back together in the calmer stretches nearer the bank. The trees behind you have gone almost fully dark now, their shapes reduced to simple black silhouettes against the deepening colour of the sky. And the fire's light seems to grow more noticeable by contrast, its orange glow now the brightest thing nearby, flickering and dancing across the pale fabric of your tent a short distance away. You feed the fire one more log, watching the new flames climb up around it slowly, and you settle back again, content to simply watch for a while longer before turning your attention to dinner. You rise eventually and gather your small cookpot and stove from where you set them out earlier, along with the simple ingredients you packed for tonight: a bag of rice, a small pouch of dried vegetables, a little packet of seasoning, and a piece of foil-wrapped cheese you have been looking forward to all day. You fill the pot with water from your bottle, listening to the soft, steady sound of it pouring, and you set the pot near the edge of the fire, close enough to catch its heat, resting it carefully on two of the flatter stones from your fire ring so it sits level and steady. You settle the pot with a small, careful adjustment, checking that it rests evenly across both stones before letting go, and you feel the immediate warmth radiating off the fire against the back of your hand as you draw it away. The bag of rice makes a soft, papery rustle as you set it down within reach, and you unwrap the cheese part way, just enough to check on it, the foil crinkling softly, releasing a faint, sharp smell that makes your stomach tighten pleasantly in anticipation, while the water begins its slow climb toward a boil. You sit back down on your stone and watch the small bubbles begin to gather along the bottom of the pot, tiny and hesitant at first, then growing steadily more frequent, more insistent, until the whole surface begins to tremble gently, the first quiet signs of a boil approaching. You add a pinch of salt, watching it dissolve instantly into the clear water, and then you pour in the rice, listening to the soft, dry rattle of the grains hitting the pot before they disappear beneath the surface. You stir once with your spoon, feeling the light resistance of the rice against the metal, and you add the dried vegetables next, small, hard little pieces that will soften slowly as they cook, releasing their colour and flavour into the water around them. You set the lid loosely over the pot and settle back to wait, the fire crackling steadily beside you, its warmth now a constant, comfortable presence against your side, the smell of the cooking rice beginning to mingle with the smoke, warm and starchy and faintly sweet. You watch the fire while you wait, feeding it small pieces of wood now and then, just enough to keep it steady rather than let it grow. And you find yourself drawn into the simple, endless motion of the flames, the way they lean and sway, even in perfectly still air, the way sparks occasionally lift free and drift upward before winking out somewhere in the darkening space above the fire ring. The sky beyond the flames has continued its slow transformation, the orange and pink of sunset fading now into a deeper blue, streaked here and there with the last thin remnants of colour low along the horizon. The heat from the fire reaches your face in soft, uneven waves, warmer when a fresh piece of wood catches fully, cooler for a moment when it settles into a slower burn. And you find the rhythm of it oddly soothing, an unhurried pulse you could sit beside for hours without growing restless. Somewhere behind you, The river continues its own steady sound, layered now beneath the closer crackle and pop of the fire. Two currents of sound running alongside each other, one older than the hills around you, the other new and small and entirely of your own making tonight. The smell of the rice deepens as it cooks, and you lift the lid once to check, releasing a small cloud of fragrant steam, and you can see the vegetables have softened, their colour spreading faintly through the water, the rice grains swelling and softening, nearly done. You set the lid back and give the pot a few more minutes, unwrapping the small piece of cheese while you wait, breaking off a corner and tasting it, sharp and rich against your tongue. A small preview of the meal still to come. You glance up once at the sky while you wait. The last band of colour along the horizon, now reduced to the thinnest possible thread of dusky rose, and above it the deep blue has begun to darken further still. The first faint stars just beginning to show themselves in scattered, hesitant points of light. So faint you have to look slightly away from them to be sure they are really there at all. When the rice is finally tender, you pull the pot carefully off the heat, using the hem of your sleeve to protect your fingers from the hot metal, and you set it on a flat stone beside you to cool slightly. You stir in the seasoning packet, watching the colour deepen and spread through the rice, and then you crumble in the last of the cheese, watching it melt slowly into soft, glossy threads that coat each grain in a rich, savoury sheen. The smell rising from the pot now is full and warm, salt and cheese, and the faint sweetness of the softened vegetables, and your stomach responds immediately. A quiet, eager anticipation after the long day's walk. You eat slowly, straight from the pot, your spoon finding its rhythm easily, each bite warm and simple and deeply satisfying. The kind of meal that tastes better for having been cooked over an open fire in the cooling evening air. The fire continues its steady crackle beside you, casting its warm, moving light across your hands, across the pot, across the small, contented smile you did not notice forming on your face until this very moment, sitting here beside the water, full and warm and entirely at ease. Each spoonful carries the same simple warmth. Rice softened just right, the vegetables tender and faintly sweet, the cheese melted through in soft, savoury pockets that catch pleasantly on your tongue. You pause between bites now and then, simply to listen. The fire's steady crackle, mixing with the river's constant murmur, just beyond the firelight. The two sounds weaving together into something that feels less like two separate noises, and more like one long, unhurried conversation the evening is having with itself. You finish the last of the rice slowly, scraping the pot clean with the edge of your spoon, and you set it aside to deal with later, content for now simply to sit, full and warm, watching the fire settle into its steady rhythm, while the last trace of blue drains slowly from the sky above the dark, silent line of the hills. You rest your hands loosely on your knees, feeling the fire's warmth against your palms, and you let your eyes fall half closed for a moment, listening, the crackle of the flames, and the murmur of the river blending together into one long, steady sound that asks nothing more of you than to sit here a while longer, warm and fed and unhurried, exactly where you are. You stay seated on the flat stone beside the fire, your body loose and warm, your stomach pleasantly full, and you let your gaze settle into the flames without any real intention of looking away. The fire has burned down slightly now from its earlier height, no longer needing your attention every few minutes, settling instead into a slow, steady bed of glowing coals, topped with smaller, gentler flames that lean and sway in place, orange and gold, occasionally flashing a brief edge of blue near the base, where the heat runs hottest. You feed it one more modest piece of wood, enough to keep it going a while longer, and you watch the new flame find its way around the bark slowly, unhurried, exactly matching your own mood. You pull your jacket a little closer around your shoulders, more from habit than any real need, since the fire's warmth still reaches you easily where you sit, and you settle deeper into your seat on the stone, feeling its solid, unmoving presence beneath you, cool where the fire's light does not quite reach, warm where it does. Your hands rest loosely in your lap, fingers still faintly smelling of wood smoke and the last traces of tonight's simple meal. And you find that particular smell comforting now, a small physical reminder of the day's slow, steady progress, from trail to river, to fire, to this quiet, settled moment. The sky above the clearing has deepened fully now into true night, the last pale traces of blue, long since given way to a rich, dark expanse, scattered with more stars than you'd bothered to count. You tip your head back slightly, feeling the stone cool and solid beneath you, and you let your eyes travel across the wide spread of light overhead, small and steady, some brighter than others, gathered in loose, uneven clusters that seem to shift very slightly if you look at them too directly, though you know it is only your own eyes adjusting, only the fire's glow competing gently with the night for your attention. You notice how the two lights work together rather than against each other. The fire, warm and close and orange, the stars cool and distant and silver white, and you find your gaze moving easily between them, down to the flickering coals, up again to the wide, quiet sky, each one offering its own kind of stillness, its own kind of company. The fire crackles softly beside you, a small occasional pop as a pocket of sap or trapped air finds its way free, and each time it happens, you watch a fresh scatter of sparks lift briefly into the dark air above the flames, glowing bright orange for a moment before fading, one by one, into nothing, swallowed by the deeper dark beyond the fire's reach. You find yourself watching for the next one without really meaning to, a small, patient anticipation that asks nothing of you but attention. And each time, a new spark rises and fades. Something in your chest settles a little further, a little looser. The river continues its steady sound just beyond the firelight, unseen now in the full dark, but no less present for that. Its low, layered murmur mixing easily with the fire's own soft voice. Two currents of sound that have been running alongside each other all evening, neither one hurrying, neither one pausing, both simply continuing exactly as they have been continuing since long before you arrived, and will keep continuing long after you have gone to sleep. You listen to the two sounds together for a while, no longer trying to separate them, letting them blend instead into one long, easy hush that seems to hold the whole dark clearing gently in place. Above you, the stars have grown even more numerous the longer you sit still, faint clusters revealing themselves slowly in patches of sky that had seemed empty only minutes before, and you trace one loose, uneven line of them with your eyes, not knowing or needing to know its name, simply following its shape across the dark, the way you might follow a path you have never walked before, but trust completely. You notice, too, how quiet everything else has become around you. The trees standing still and dark at the edge of the firelight. No wind moving through their branches. No small creatures stirring nearby that you can hear. Only the fire and the river and the wide, patient sky. All three holding their own steady, unhurried company with you and with each other. None of them needing anything more from this night than to simply continue being exactly what they already are. You shift slightly on the stone, drawing your knees up a little, wrapping your arms loosely around them, and you feel the fire's warmth reach a little further now, touching your shins, the backs of your hands. A soft, steady heat that never quite becomes too much, always settling into exactly the right amount of comfort. The night air behind you, beyond the fire's reach, carries a cooler edge, and you feel the contrast clearly. Warm along your front, cool along your back, your whole body caught pleasantly between the two, neither one asking you to move. You watch the coals shift once, settling lower with a soft, muffled collapse, sending up one last small cloud of sparks before the flames above them steady again into their slow, familiar dance. The light they cast moves constantly across everything nearby. The pale curve of your tent, a short distance away, glowing faintly gold, then dimmer, then gold again. The nearby trees flickering in and out of visibility at the edges of the firelight, their trunks catching the glow for a moment before slipping back into shadow. A small, cool breeze moves through the clearing, so light you feel it mostly in the way the flames bend briefly to one side before straightening again, and you catch, on that same breeze, the faint mineral smell of the river, mixed now with the deeper, warmer smell of wood smoke. Two scents that have come to feel, over the course of this one evening, like they belong together completely. You breathe it in slowly, filling your chest, and you let it out again even more slowly, feeling your shoulders drop a little further with each long, easy breath. You let your thoughts wander loosely now, following no particular thread, drifting instead the way the smoke drifts, upward and sideways, thinning slowly into the dark until it disappears completely, and you find you do not mind not thinking of anything in particular, content simply to sit, to watch, to listen, your body growing heavier and more settled with every slow, easy breath. The fire has burned down further now, the flame smaller, softer, more coals than flame at this point, glowing a deep, steady orange beneath a thin, shifting layer of ash. And you watch them the way you might watch something breathing slowly in its sleep, in and out, brightening faintly, dimming again, patient and unhurried, and in no rush to go out completely. The warmth of it still reaches you even now, softer than before, but no less present. A low, steady heat that seems to have settled into your bones sometime over the course of the evening, without your quite noticing when. And you find yourself unwilling to move just yet, content to sit a while longer in this last gentle glow before the night asks anything more of you. Above you, the stars seem closer somehow, or perhaps only clearer, more of them showing themselves the longer the fire settles, and your own eyes grow more accustomed to the deep, soft dark, and you let your head tip back further, resting against nothing but the cool night air itself, feeling impossibly small and impossibly comfortable at the very same time, held gently by the wide, quiet sky, and the low glowing fire, and the constant, unhurried sound of the water moving past somewhere close beside you, somewhere in the slow, wide stretch of sky above you. One star seems to hold your attention longer than the rest, small and steady, and very far away, and you find yourself simply resting your gaze there, not thinking, not naming it, only watching the way its faint light seems to pulse very slightly, so slowly you cannot be certain it is really happening at all, and you let your eyes drift closed for a moment, then open again, and the star is still there, patient, waiting, exactly where it was, and you feel, sitting there in the dark with the fire's low glow beside you, and that one patient star above you, a kind of stillness you rarely find anywhere else, a stillness with no edges to it, no beginning, and no particular need for an end, and you let yourself rest inside it a while longer, unhurried, unbothered, simply here, simply present beside the water and the fire and the wide, dark sky. You rise eventually, slowly, your body loose and warm and heavy, with the same easy stillness that has settled over the whole clearing, and you bank the fire carefully, spreading the last coals thin and low, watching their glow dim gradually beneath a soft covering of ash. Safe now, quiet now, ready to rest through the night the same way you are. You stand there a moment longer in the near dark, feeling the cool night air settle fully around you, now that the fire's warmth no longer reaches you directly, and you look up once more at the wide, star-scattered sky before you turn away, feeling that same soft, unhurried calm follow you as you go, unwilling to be left behind by the mere act of walking. You walk the short distance to your tent in the dark, your feet finding the familiar ground easily now, every step slow and unhurried, and you duck through the door into the tent's close, soft, dark, feeling its walls gather gently around you, feeling the last of the outside night fade into a warm, contained hush. You sit for a moment just inside the door, drawing off your boots slowly, feeling the cool night air on your bare feet fade quickly into the tent's own gathered warmth, and you set your boots neatly to one side, within easy reach for the morning, before turning toward the soft, waiting shape of your bed. You change slowly into the warm layer you set aside earlier, the fabric soft and a little cool against your skin at first, warming quickly as your body settles into it, and you fold your day's clothes into a loose pile near the tent wall, unhurried, every small motion slower now than the one before it. You lie down for a moment before pulling the sleeping bag fully over you, just resting on top of it, feeling the tense quiet settle around you completely, the faint rustle of nylon whenever you shift, the soft, muffled hush of the world outside, grown even softer through these thin, sheltering walls. You lower yourself down onto the waiting bed, the sleeping pad soft and firm beneath you, the sleeping bag drawing up warm around your shoulders as you settle in. Heavy now, so heavy, your whole body sinking slowly into the softness beneath it. And beyond the tent's thin walls, the river keeps moving, keeps murmuring. That same slow, endless sound that has been with you all evening. Closer now, softer now, folding itself gently around the edges of your thoughts. Your eyes have closed now, or perhaps they closed some time ago. It is hard to say, hard to hold on to any one small fact for very long anymore. Only the warmth remains clear, and the weight of the blankets and the low, endless murmur of the water somewhere close beside you. Patient, unhurried, saying the same soft thing over and over, in a language made entirely of sound and rhythm rather than words, somewhere far off. The fire you banked continues its own last, slow fading, coals dimming beneath their thin blanket of ash. And you feel, even from here, even through the tent's soft walls, some faint echo of the warmth it gave you all evening. A memory of heat resting now alongside the memory of firelight flickering across your hands, across the water, across the wide, dark curve of the sky, and somewhere beneath even that memory. Quieter still, there is only the simple fact of being warm, being held, being done for the day. Nothing left to build, nothing left to gather, nothing left to do but rest, fully, completely, the way the fire is resting now under its own soft blanket of ash outside and above the tent, unseen now but somehow still felt. The same wide scatter of stars continues its slow, silent wheel, indifferent and patient and entirely unbothered by the smallness of one tent, one fire, one sleeping traveller resting beneath them, and you drift a little further into that vastness, even as your body grows heavier, softer, more thoroughly given over to the mattress and the blanket and the dark, and the river's sound has stopped feeling like something separate from you now, folding instead into the same slow rhythm as your own breath, in and a long, easy pause, and out, slow and complete, over and over, water and breath moving together in one continuous, wordless motion that asks nothing more of you than to keep sinking, lower and lower, into the soft, warm dark. The last small thoughts of the evening drift loose now. The smell of wood smoke, the taste of warm rice, the cool, smooth weight of a river stone in your palm. All of it folding together, losing its edges, blending into something soft and formless. No longer separate memories, but one single warm impression of a day well spent, and a night settling gently around it, and the sound goes on and on. Water over stone, stone beneath water. The whole wide night breathing slowly round this one small warm tent, and you are sinking now, lower and lower. The sound and the warmth and the soft, settled dark, all blending together into one long, unhurried wave, and you are floating somewhere inside it, weightless, formless, already drifting, already gone, already asleep.